8:37 here as we continue the snow coverage, the roads coverage, the federal government coverage, the ice coverage, the ice in two ways, I guess, in this case, and all the other fallout. We cannot lose sight of what's going on in Richmond, Virginia, as Abigail Spanberger, speaking of snow queens, and the Democrats have assembled. Cassie Smedley, as a newly evolved Virginian, where you escaped the District of Columbia. I know you're watching intently on what's going on in this legislative session. It's your worst nightmare.
Very much.
Yeah,
it really is.
You thought you were moving for some more sane and rational governance, but instead, well, let's bring in Tom Garrett. He is a delegate representing the 56 districts. That's Appomattox, Buckingham, Cumberland, and et cetera. Delegate Garrett, it's worse than we expected, but we did expect this. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I don't think we could have expected it, actually, Larry and Cassie. Let me back up for a second. I just want to give you an entertainment point. You need to Google easy iguana recipes. These people in South Florida have but if I might give you a quick timeline, we're going to go back to 1787 when the Constitution was signed. 1788, it's ratified. 1971, we passed the Virginia Constitution, which requires 90 days notice before a constitutional amendment is put on a ballot. In 2020, 99 of 100 House of Delegates districts passed nonpartisan redistricting by about a 66-33 margin. Everyone in Virginia said we never want partisans to drive our redistricting. In October of 2025, they convened the State Code Commission and said we probably should repeal that 90-day requirement notice because it's antiquated.
Yeah.
A week later, they said we want to redraw the districts. They didn't repeal it because the Code Commission advises they don't make laws. In January, a Virginia court said, hey, y'all can't do that. 2 days later, the Virginia Senate voted to go back in time to 1971, remove the pesky provision from the Virginia Constitution requiring 90 days notice retroactively in reaction to the judge. Today, the House of Delegates Democrats will do the same thing. So I think that first we should be considering what other amazing things we can do now that the Virginia Democrats have invented a time machine. And I've listened to the sort of, they're trying to drive out Democrats to vote to make Virginia 10 out of 11 seats Democrat in Congress. And they're like, well, look, we're only doing this once. The way this is drafted, it's because Trump made us do it, but we'll never do it again.
Yeah,
Larry,
exactly.
Kathy, when you put it in the Constitution, you promise that you're never going to do it, period. Not that you're going to change the Constitution 55 years retroactively so you can do it, but only when it suits you.
Well, Delegate Garrett, you're forgetting the all-important constitutional Trump clause in every provision in every constitution, that everything changes with Trump. But yeah, that time machine would be amazing. We could go back in time when Tim Kaine and Mark Warner both claimed they were moderates. Tim Kaine was pro-life. Mark Warner said he'd only run for Senate for 2 terms. Those were good times. The Virginia time machine is a political phenomenon. How are you going to fight this, though? Because it seems like the law and the Constitution are on your side, but it all depends on what judge you get in front of. And will you be able to fight this at the very least to keep this radical redistricting from happening for this year's midterms, at least?
Well, tragically, Cassie, Larry, I'm ignoring you on purpose because Cassie's a Virginian. Tragically, you all should have me back on more often. Tragically, as you know, our courts move at the speed of pond water. I think we win this thing in state court. The problem is that you can tell who's nonpartisan, what partisanship nonpartisans have by which partisans appointed them. The Supreme Court in Virginia tends to lean left, but I think we win it in state court. We certainly win it in federal court. They're trying to ram this through by April 21st. I don't think the courts can move that, or I fear the courts can't move that quickly. But, I mean, again, the Constitution should be sacrosanct, going back 55 years literally to before I was born, so that we can remove pesky provisions that stop us from partisan power grabs 5 short years after the citizens of Virginia voted in a bipartisan manner, 66-33, to say we'll never do this again, is exactly how democracies are destroyed, and is frankly really a great example of why we have terms like banana republic. So it troubles me as an American who believes what Winston Churchill said when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, that American democracy is the worst in the world, except for all the others. This is unparalleled, unprecedented, unthinkable, and unconscionable, and it will change how America functions going forward if we don't stop it. So I don't know how. The courts will probably rule on our side, but if they rule on our side 2 years from now, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. No pressure,
Yeah, right.
Anything else? Any uplifting news for the day? Because the other thing that we're talking about too, because speaking of Democrats taking hold of the elections, they won, so they are putting forth their total goodie bag wish list everywhere we turn. And the next thing we're hearing about is pay raises. They're giving themselves pay raises.
Well, they've done a hell of a job, you must admit, Delegate Garrett. They deserve a 100% increase.
Well, I mean, I told Heather before the hit, y'all might not want to ask me about that. The reality is that politicians are incredibly fascinating animals to watch. I've done it in Washington and Richmond, and we probably should get a pay raise. I make a whopping $17,600 a year in the House of Delegates for this part-time job. If I go on the floor and say, hey, I'm a really good attorney, you should hire me, they hit me with an ethics violation. So it's ridiculous. The governor of Virginia makes $150,000 and the AG $175,000, but the Commonwealth's attorney in rural Louisa County makes $183,000. So going from $17,000 a year for this part-time gig, and I put air quotes around that, to $45,000 is far from the most egregious overreach the Democrats have foisted upon the Virginia citizens this cycle.
Yeah, but it's just fun to beat you guys on it. Beat you guys up on it anyway.
Well, you know what? I would love to do a political tap dance and say shame on them, aren't they horrible? But I have this bad habit of telling the truth, which is probably a big part of the reason that I haven't been very successful with leadership in my political history.
Well, that said, though, you can follow the footsteps of your colleague Nick Freitas, and because you give great sound bites and great videos, to start a podcast, you'll be a multimillionaire.
There you go.
There's a theory there. You give me a call after the show. I mean, I'm trying.
Okay.
I know that.
You know a guy.
I got him.
You know a guy.
Absolutely.
Who could help. No, and I take your point. I do think elected officials should be compensated. It's one of the reasons that it's difficult to get good people to run for office.
Well, you can get bartenders from the Bronx.
That's right.
That's about the best you can do.
There
There's a reason for that. But also on the heels of every other fee and tax that they're putting in place, it just hits a little harder for the rest of us out here who aren't getting raises.
I totally agree. But I never figured out how to monetize it, right? I spent 2 years in Congress and for real left far less wealthy than, Ilhan Omar marries her brother, pops over, and it's worth $30 million.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Got to talk to Ilhan.
I was going to say you should marry your brother, but you're probably better off marrying Ilhan Omar's brother. I think he's got the angle. Virginia Delegate Tom Garrett's our guest.
I got a sister and not a brother, but I'm from Virginia, not West Virginia.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, we've gone off the rails.
We have. This is exactly the material I need to launch the podcast with Tom Garrett.
There you go.
Real fast, back to the redistricting thing, because the Orwellian deceit that you're seeing. I saw one Democrat Virginian from Fairfax tweeting out, well, I'm in favor of this because I want Virginians to have a voice in redistricting. They had their voice. They've already said by 2-1 that they don't want to do this and they're not going to do this. And so they're just deceitful about it. Is there anything we can do, though, or is this train just going downhill fast?
Well, I'm not even joking. I'm dead serious. First, you pray and say, God, you got it in your hands, and you know better than we do. Take it where it's supposed to go. But tell people to go vote on April 21st. Contact your legislators and tell them that your state level legislators, tell them you support them, because we don't get those messages often. And make sure you vote. I mean, Virginia has 5 Republican seats and 6 Democrat seats. That perfectly mirrors our turnout in the last presidential election. The system was working. They won 10-1. And just the hubris and the gaslighting that they engage in to justify this behavior it defies belief, but here we are. So yeah, I start with prayer every day, and then I move to what can I do? What would God have me do to help my neighbor, to smile in the midst of the storm, and to do the right thing.
Virginia Delegate Tom Garrett, always a good convo. Don't be a stranger. You're fun. And, by the way, an iguana aficionado there. He's a bit of a connoisseur there.
You get me off air on that, too. I spent some time in South Florida.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm sure many laws were violated, not least of which what you do with a lizard. 8:45.